guys, welcome to another episode of Health, Faith, and Herbs. I'm your host, Eli, from Eli's Naturals. This week I'm coming from you from a little park near my house where nature kind of meets civilization. I mean, you really wouldn't know this place is here, although right over there is a creek or a river, and right up there is a major highway. So sometimes, if you want to find nature, you just kind of got to go look, and you'd be surprised where you find it. Anyways, so this week I want to talk digestion. And specifically, I want to talk acid reflux, GERD, heartburn, indigestion, whatever you call it, that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so first of all, we have to talk a little bit about how the digestive process works. I mean, basically, we know this. You chew up food, it goes down your esophagus, it lands in your stomach, where the stomach acid churns it up. But what most people don't realize is that the stomach acid, the stomach has a very special lining, because the stomach acid is very, very strong. Stomach acid, if it's hydrochloric acid, and if I dumped hydrochloric acid on my kitchen linoleum, it would burn a hole through it. And this is what happens is while the stomach has this special coating, the esophagus does not. So when you get heartburn and indigestion, as most people know and understand, there's a sphincter or a little valve at the top of your stomach. And that valve is supposed to keep the stomach acid in the stomach. Well, unfortunately, with our modern American diet, a lot of us have trouble with that sphincter getting wore out, and acid comes up through that sphincter. And when it comes up through that sphincter and gets into the esophagus, it's too strong and the acid burns. And over time, it can literally cause physical tissue damage to the walls of the esophagus because, like I said, it has hydrochloric acid, and that stuff's really, really strong. So the good news of it is that there are things you can do. Now, most people rely on one of two things. They either take antacids or they take what's called a proton pump inhibitor, which is that once a day pill you take. Well, both things kind of have their issues. One of the biggest issues in both cases is it reduces the stomach acid. And while for a long time we thought, hey, that's the point, that is obviously if you have acid coming back up into your esophagus, up from your stomach, then you have too much acid. And the truth of the matter is what they're finding is not always. Majority of people don't have too much acid. They have not enough acid. What causes it to come up is not the fact that the stomach is over full. It's the fact that it's sloshing around too much. There's not enough acid in your stomach to do what it needs to do. So there's a lot of sloshing, a lot of churning going on. And eventually when you slosh and churn a lot, things splash upward. So in this case, the problem of it is if you're reducing your acid, now you're making bad things worse. And a lot of times with chronic long-term use of these items, you can actually end up with more heartburn because you're reducing an already low number. And there's a few other problems with proton pump inhibitors. I mean, as I said, both proton pump inhibitors pretty much stop acid production altogether, which is really not good. Antacids reduce the amount of acid, which is still not great. Some of the other problems too is with proton pump inhibitors. Okay, so let's stop and think about this. Think about what your stomach does. Your stomach is part of your digestion. That we know. But its job is to chew everything up. It takes everything and it mixes it with acid and it sloshes it around. And then you have peristalsis, which is the waves of your stomach muscles squeezing everything real tight. And basically it turns everything into chum, which is, think gruel. This gruely mixture of oatmeal-ish stuff. I know nobody's going to ever be able to eat oatmeal again now that I've said that. That allows it to, then it goes into your small intestine, where the small intestine is able to say, okay, now I have this in a form that I can break it down and take the parts that I need out of it. all your vitamins, all your minerals, all your good stuff comes out of it. And then it goes into the large intestine where everything is, the liquids and all the water is reabsorbed out of it. And you end up with a solid mass that your body is then able to eliminate. Okay, so go back to where I was at the stomach. I said to you, the stomach's job is to churn everything and mix it with the acid and put it into this really fine mesh of gruel that the body can work with. But if you reduce the amount of acid that is in the stomach, what ends up happening is you end up with a chunky chum. That's a fun phrase to say, versus your nice, smooth consistency. And so what ends up happening is now when it gets into the small intestine can't absorb everything the way it's supposed to because it's not down to a size and consistency that the small intestine can work with. Because you got to remember, there's very little peristalsis in the small intestine and large intestine, basically just enough to keep stuff moving down the pipe. So it's not like the small intestine and large intestine are continuing to churn things up. They're just moving stuff along. So if it's not broke down enough, then it's not going to work. The body's not going to absorb what it needs to absorb. And this leads to poor digestion, which is a lot of times too why people who have indigestion and then they start taking a lot of antacids, they start feeling very heavy with their meals because they don't have enough acid moving. And that lack of acid and that poor digestion leads, number one of the biggest problems that they're seeing is it can lead to a lack of calcium, because the body can't absorb the calcium because of the lack of acid. It can also lead to iron and B12 deficiencies. There again, due to the fact that the body's not breaking things down. So, a study has also shown a risk of kidney disease, a risk of infections such as gastroinfections and respiratory infections and liver problems, which makes sense considering the role bile plays in digestion. If you're messing up one part of the piece, you're messing up the whole system. So that's an issue. So the question then becomes, what do we do if we don't want to live on a proton pump inhibitor? Well, you know me, I always have some kind of suggestions, and today's no different. I'm thankful to a God who always gives us a better way to do things. First of all, let's talk diet. That's where it all starts. What you take in is what you're digesting. So one of the things is try and eat smaller meals. Avoid that feeling of stuffed. Because what people sometimes don't realize is your stomach is like a balloon. It will continue to stretch. Our stomachs can get huge. Well, the problem of it is have you ever put like a big rock in a jar, put water in it, and then slosh it around? That big rock takes up so much space, that sloshing around gets really big versus a whole bunch of little bitty pebbles. That's kind of the concept. You don't want to get to the point of having that stuffed feeling because you are putting more food in your stomach, which of course is forcing the acid upward. Increase your fiber. Fiber aids in digestion. And unfortunately, 90% of us do not get enough fiber. Your best source of fiber are nuts, seeds, and fruits and vegetables. And let's face it, most of us are barely getting 5 to 6 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, let alone the recommended 8 or 9. So that's number one. Number two, increase your water. Yep, water aids in digestion. And if you're dehydrated, your digestion is going downhill. Keep in mind, I'm happy when a client gets in 64 ounces of water. Preferably, I would prefer 100 to 120. The new studies do show that in order to be hydrated, and I use that word because hydration has many, many different meanings, but basically you want to drink half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you should be drinking 100 ounces of water. That's a good ballpark. Second one, of course, we already talked about green veggies. The third one, most people with heartburn know. Avoid acidic foods because think about it. You're putting more acid into your stomach. Now, here's the catch. If you suffer from low acid indigestion, adding acid can help. This is why a lot of people get a lot of help from taking apple cider vinegar because you're increasing the acid. However, if you are one of the people who has overproduction of acid, such as me, then taking apple cider vinegar does not help. You are adding acid to an already full tank of acid. So my suggestion is try it. Hi guys, are we back? I am so sorry. We lost connection for a minute. That'll be fun in editing. For those of you who are watching me on YouTube, this will be fun. We'll hopefully be able to take that spot out. Anyways, so, my suggestion with apple cider vinegar is try it. If you find relief, awesome. If you find that it causes you more heartburn, then that's the first thing I would cut out. Okay, let's talk lifestyle. So, number one, when you are done eating, let gravity work for you. So many times, I can't talk. A lot of people with heartburn notice that it's worse when they're in bed, when they go to bed. That's because gravity is working against you. You are laying down. So, prop yourself up. When I was pregnant, not only did I have like 3 pillows, which I sleep with anyways, John had to put bricks under the bed to get me at a good angle, under the head of the bed. Sometimes that can help. When you're done with dinner or any meal, don't lay down. So many times we finish the meal and we kick back in the recliner or we stretch out on the couch. Give yourself 20 minutes or so for digestion to kind of kick in and do its thing. Then you can lay down and relax for the evening. Best thing you can do, go for a walk. Studies have proven that walking helps aid in digestion. So when you're done with the meal, when you're done with the lunch at work, go for a 10-minute walk around the block. Be surprised how much good it'll do you. Okay, so the next thing we want to talk about is the one thing we all want to talk about every time we're together, and that is the herbs. Everybody comes to me because we all love the herbs. And why shouldn't we love the herbs? Because herbs are awesome. Herbs are the tool that God gave us to help with all of our health complaints. So let's talk herbs. Okay, first of all, I need to explain what a bitter is. Digestive bitters are part of your digestive process. Literally, they have discovered that between your mouth and your stomach, there are like 15 bitter receptors. Everybody thinks it's a taste bud, but it's actually more than that. Yes, sweet, sour, bitter, those are taste buds. But that's actually the first trigger. Bitters are a signaling service. They let the body know to turn on the digestion. It is the here it comes. Everybody get ready. Man your posts. Call. And part of the problem of it is we have taken bitter out of our foods. I don't know if any of you know that in early days, when food was served in courses, the very first course before you ate the main meal was usually a salad or from a bitter alcohol. That is because that bitter helped with digestion. And a lot of times what they did is they would have a salad to start with to help aid in their digestion. And if it was a heavy meal, which happened a lot back then, that is where a drink after dinner came in, because they were actually drinking a bitter, to help aid in that digestion. The other things bitters can do is it modulates the appetite and curbs cravings. It kind of lets us know, it helps the body maintain how much food it needs to take in and how much food it doesn't. So here is the thing though. You have to taste it. So the herbs I'm about to explain to you, which are bitters, you have to taste them. This means you cannot take it in a capsule because it will not work. The body has to be triggered. So you have to get that bitter sense. And a lot of times that's why tinctures are great, because they are bitter. I have a lot of clients who it's because they're bitter that they have trouble getting them down. But that bitter actually works because there's a whole lot more that those bitter receptors can do. Now, for those of you who don't like the alcohol in tinctures, you can do a bitter as a glycerin. You can do a bitter as a tea. You can do a bitter as an oxymel. As long as you're tasting it, and usually the bitter will come out even in something sweet like a glycerin. I usually don't recommend it as well. I mean, if you do it as an oxymel, then you can add the syrup because of the vinegar. Bitters and vinegar would probably be the way that I would most recommend doing this if you're not into tinctures, because there again, you're still getting that bitter sour flavor. And you don't have to worry so much about the sweetness of the glycerin counteracting what you're trying to do. Okay, so here's my list of bitters for today. The first one is artichoke leaf. Now, some people do eat artichoke, but usually what is eaten is the hearts. You want the leaves. So normally, you can, I believe, in some places buy artichoke leaf if you can. And that's one thing I want to tell you. Any of these herbs I'm going to talk about today, you can also use as food. Do it the way they used to do it. Cook them up and eat them or make them a salad, or, your fried greens. That's all great things to do. So like I said, the first one's artichoke leaf. Artichoke leaf, that's pretty much what it is. I will tell you, I know herbalists who use it as a bitter. There's not a lot of things that we do with it besides a bitter. Dandelion leaf. We've all talked about dandelion leaf several times. I'm pretty sure you all are understanding that dandelion is one of my favorites. Dandelion leaf is a bitter. It's also a diuretic. So there you can be getting 2 kills for 1. And if you mix the leaf and the root, now you're getting liver support, which helps with digestion, which is how I would recommend doing it. Burdock root. We've talked about burdock root before. We've talked about it as a lymphatic. We've talked about it as helping with inflammation. Now we're going to talk about it as a bitter. It helps with digestion. Turmeric, one of everybody's favorites. Yes, turmeric is a bitter. It's not a very strong bitter, and normally it's not really one that's used in bitter formulas, but it can be considered a bitter. Now, one that is used a lot and is used a lot in bitter formulas is ginger. A little sipping ginger tea, taking ginger candies. Ginger is a great one for when you have heartburn. There's a herbalist I know. He's pretty popular. He actually suggests taking a giant shot of bitter. Like if you get heartburn, giant shot of ginger. Sorry. If you get heartburn, that's what he's going to tell you to do while you're having the heartburn, is to take some ginger. The other one is orange peel. We're talking about the peel. If you go to an herbal store, or you can dry it yourself, grind it up, make a tincture out of it. Those are the things we do. Now, the next couple ones are what they call relaxing bitters. This is going to help with everything. It's more calming. It's more soothing. It's going to help with all the tightness you get. If you've ever had heartburn, y'all know how sometimes it feels like you're having a heart attack. This is going to help me with that. In that list, you have chamomile, you have catnip. Yes, catnip. I know some people, catnip is one you got to talk. Okay, sorry guys, I am having internet issues today. I don't know why. Okay, back to catnip. Catnip is one of those everybody thinks of for their cats. What they don't realize is catnip is actually a nervine. I love catnip. I love combining catnip and chamomile. It's one of my favorite combinations. Sorry. Catnip is a relaxing nervine, a relaxing bitter nervine. The other two is lemon balm and holy basil, both of which we talked about. Lemon balm works really well. It's in the same family as orange peel, so it does make a nice relaxing bitter. Now, the reason why I gave you these two lists is because, like I said earlier, there are kind of two groups of people. There are those who have low acid and those who have a high acid. And if you're like me, and I seem to have the higher acid form, the first list of bitters, the artichoke, the dandelion, the burdock, well, especially ginger, some of those seem to aggravate my heartburn more than it helps it. I have to use more of the underlying ones, the relaxing bitters, chamomile, lemon balm, catnip. Those seem to work better for me. So that's why I gave you the list in two ways. When it comes to heartburn, guys, you're going to have to kind of try and fail. If you try it and try it a couple times and it doesn't seem to relax your heartburn or makes it worse, try a different one. I can tell you, if you're worried about triggers, ginger, gentian, which is one I didn't mention because it does tend to trigger people. It's very harsh. Those are going to be your triggers. So that's what I have for today. Sorry about the internet issues. I do apologize. And I hope to see you guys all next time when I bring you my next topic. For now, health, faith, and herbs, guys.